KHOU TV, Houston. And now, from 11 News in Houston, Sylvan Rodriguez, Susan Banks, and Mario Gomez with weather.
What about our IQ?
The wind, the waves, the water, and once again, man braces himself against nature's onslaught. This time it was High Island, where Hurricane Chantal's center made landfall between 7 and 8 this morning. Good afternoon. Sylvan Rodriguez is off this week. Steve Smith is here for us. Hurricane Chantal, now Tropical Storm Chantal, lashing much of southeast Texas with high wind and a lot of rain. We'll be going to vantage points all along the coast for first-hand reports. First, closer to home, Steve.
As we say, it came ashore at High Island, but right now the hardest hit area appears to be around Clear Lake. At this hour, it's being pummeled by powerful wind and a good deal of rain. Space reporter John Getter is covering an entirely different story in the Clear Lake area today, and he joins us live from the scene. John, very wet there this afternoon.
Hi, Steve. It's really a mess out here, as you can see behind me. It may have been labeled now a tropical storm, but let me tell you, it still feels a lot like a hurricane. We're in the shelter of the building, the Nassau Bay Hilton right now, so we're not getting the worst of it. If you can see over my shoulder, though, the boats are whipping around out there. Heavy, heavy winds out here. It's been quite a day. The day started out bad and just got worse. Daylight brought a feeling of security to the Clear Lake area. It was rainy and windy, but not too bad for a swim. Some boat owners stayed on the water. James Wagner saying he's dumb, but not stupid.
We'll just float up with it. It'll be fine. If it had been much worse than this, we probably would be gone.
It was a good morning for those watching over the boats.
We've actually had the water go down close to a foot because the wind's blowing all the water out instead of in. When the wind's blowing in and the eye passes to the west of us, then our waters come up real high and fast here.
So you're feeling good about this?
Feeling better. I don't feel good until it's gone.
But Runco knew the morning had brought a false sense of security.
Activating the emergency broadcast system.
The emergency alerts went out as the wind and rain came up. Runco's morning had gotten much more complicated.
Steve, I don't think anybody's going to feel good till it's gone, and I don't think anybody expected it to come ashore as early as it did. It gathered speed during the night, roared across land east of the Houston area in change.
It's been that way since the back side of the storm moved in several hours ago. This area has been getting battered, but unlike what you're seeing in the Houston area, we have seen very little damage, and it is now completely dry. It's been that way for most of the morning. Everyone here hopes that this storm will blow away and that damage estimate will remain the same, but of course this storm isn't over yet.
This is what the people of High Island woke up to this morning. Crashing waves and a tide that at one point was nearly 7 feet above normal. It surged over State Highway 87, prompting authorities to temporarily close that route to the Sabine Pass. Many townspeople left, fearing that High Island might be cut off completely.
Beach erosion, that's where coastal flooding is going
Others
to be.
stayed in a makeshift shelter at the school gymnasium, where they worried over weather reports. But soon enough, it was clear that as far as hurricanes go, this one luckily failed to make the grade.
I'm well pleased to have everything ready, had this open for us, everything like that. We live down in Gilchrist, and of course we had to leave our trailers and everything, but we got out of it anyway.
Later in the morning, a calm fell over Bolivar Peninsula as the eye of the storm passed directly overhead. It was a few hours of welcome relief from the wind and rain, and it was a golden opportunity for some local fishermen to take advantage of the schools of fish swept in by the strong tide.
Time to set the hook. Oh, that current's strong.
Now we just haven't seen the kinds of things here that you have in the Houston area in terms of that torrential rain. We are seeing this strong wind though, and it is going to be that way we expect for at least a few more hours. The wind is the key to further damage here. If it continues, there could be more property damage, but everyone here is hoping that the worst is over. Steve, Susan?
Phil, did you stick around long enough to see if that fellow did any good there in the surf fishing?
Well, I don't know. It did do some good for a couple of guys that were catching a few cats, but no redfish. That's what they were after.
Okay.
Thanks,
Well,
Will.
those fishermen will take advantage of anything, won't
They sure will. Now, we'll be going back for more reports from our people along the coast in just a moment. Right now, let's get a late status report on this storm.
Watching Chantal just as he has watched dozens of other tropical storm systems this past quarter century, Channel 11 Chief Meteorologist Neil Frank. Short night for you, my friend. Neil, Dan?
It was, Steve, Susan, no question about it. Dan and I have both been here since early this morning watching the progress of the system very carefully. And as Susan indicated, it is now weakened. It is no longer a hurricane. It's a tropical storm. Highest winds are now 55 miles an hour, and that's what we're feeling over the Houston area. And as the winds decrease, the emphasis now becomes on heavy rains. We have flood warnings now in effect for Harris, Brazoria, Chambers, and Galveston County. 10.5 inches of rain this morning in Clear Lake. 5 of that fell in 2 inches in 2 hours, and it's continuing to rain, and it looks like it's going to continue to rain during the afternoon and evening. Now, Dan's going to have a complete report on that a little later in the program, and it's the flooding that we're concerned about now.
All right, Neil and Dan, thanks very much. We want to hear more about that rain very shortly. One of the largest cities along the coast to the east of the storm is Port Arthur, and it's not hard to imagine the worry they've been through, Steve.
Right. Charles Hadlock has been our observer on the scene there. I guess, Charlie, if this is the worst they get in Port Arthur this hurricane season, they'll probably be very happy, won't they?
Yes, they are very happy today, Steve. The sun is trying to peek through the clouds here in Port Arthur, but it is still quite windy, as you can probably tell. The water is beginning to recede from Sabine Pass this morning. That's the southeastern tip of the state of Texas that was cut off last night and this morning by tidal flooding. During the height of the storm this morning, there was a dramatic rescue of 7 tuna fishermen whose boat conked out and crashed into the rock-lined jetties south of Sabine Pass. The fishermen, all of them Vietnamese immigrants, were rescued by a Coast Guard helicopter, including 2 crewmen who fell overboard. The captain of the boat told me in broken English that the ordeal was very scary and that he and his crew are very lucky to be alive, and indeed they are. The people of Sabine Pass should be lucky too. Most of their homes survived this hurricane. Most of the 900 residents chose to leave the low-lying area last night, but not Jerry Gibson, who decided to stay.
Nothing to worry about. It's a stout house. It's, like I say, it's been through everything, including the 1900 and the 1957 Audrey. This house has been here since 1889. So if it lasts that long, I think it'll last a few more.
And it did last through Hurricane Chantal. One of the oddities about this storm, we are on the eastern end of the storm, and we're supposed to be getting all the rain, but it looks like, Steve and Susan, that you are getting all the rain back in Houston.
As a matter of fact, there is a good deal of flooding around here, and we'll be talking about that in just a minute, too. Thank you, Charlie. Once again today, Galveston has dodged the bullet. Other parts of Texas are bearing the full brunt of this storm.
Well, that's not to say the island has been completely spurned by Chantal. Far from it. High wind and driving rain are pelting Galveston and its 60,000 folks. Our reporter on the beach is Curran Snipes. Not a great day to be on the beach, Curran.
No, it's not. In fact, I'm standing on the flagship pier, and it's difficult to even maintain my footing. Galveston is getting slapped around a bit as the tail end of Chantal passes across the island. The winds are very intense, but the wind and the rain really didn't pick up until the storm was about 20 miles offshore this morning. Let's take a look at some pictures of what it looked like along the seawall earlier today. Conditions were rough, in fact so rough that city officials requested that people living on the island's unprotected west end come into the city. About 1,000 people did so, and several dozen of them went to a public school that was opened as a temporary shelter.
Well, I kind of stayed awake partly during the night because, you know, it's kind of windy and raining pretty bad. And I don't know, when you got a hurricane out there, it's kind of scared.
Officials say they've had very few reports of any wind damage, although we have seen at least one traffic light that bit the dust in the street. What they are concerned about now is flooding. There is a lot of flooding on side streets and even several of the main streets here in town. We're told at this hour they are going to close the temporary shelter they opened, and also that they are going to close the Emergency Operations Center in City Hall because they feel the worst of the storm is over, although standing out here, it's rather hard to tell. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Curran. You really look windblown, fella. We really appreciate it, too.
Let me ask you one thing, Curran. Is the causeway open now? The Causeway Bridge?
The causeway has been open all morning. We were there earlier today, and cars were braving it to go across. City officials had been warning that a 55-mile-an-hour speed wind conditions could tip an RV or even a car. So they're telling people still to be careful.
With good reason, of course.
Absolutely. 55 miles an hour is still pretty strong. All right, Curran, we'll check back with you later. Now, if you need to evacuate, the Red Cross has opened shelters in Harris, Galveston, and Chambers counties. In Harris County, the place to go is a community center on Market Street in Baytown and Trinity Baptist Church in Pasadena. In Chambers County, the shelters are at the Winnie High School and the Anahuac Junior High. And in Galveston County, you can go to McAdams Junior High School in Dickinson. We have a number of closings in the area at this hour as well. The following schools have canceled classes: Houston Community College, both afternoon and evening classes; University of Houston, all campuses and offices; Texas Southern University, San Jacinto College, all campuses; Rice University administrative offices are closed; the College of the Mainland in Texas City, Lee College, University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston, LaPorte, Alvin, and Humble ISDs. The following companies will be closed until further notice as well: the Johnson Space Center, IBM, and United Gas Pipeline. Now, if you're wondering about your own school or your place of business, you might want to call them directly and get some direct information from them.
Chances are they'll answer the phone by saying, yes, we are open, or no, we're not open
Or
anymore.
they'll have an answering machine.
Yes, they will. Still ahead on 11 News this noon hour. So far, a big rainstorm for Houston. There is some flooding around here. The city gearing up for the worst Chantel has to offer.
We'll have all the latest for you when we come back.
Oh, now this one could win Target's baby photo sweepstakes. No.
As we indicated earlier, there has been a good deal of flooding around, especially in the southeast part of the county. In a moment, we'll be talking to Jim Green at Harris County Flood Control. The heavy rain proved too much for a number of cars and trucks in southeast Houston already.
That's right. Feeder roads on the Gulf Freeway from Beltway 8 to Dickinson have been flooded. Some vehicles are stalled out. Others bravely made it through, and other small access roads were covered, forcing drivers to look for alternate routes. It's not good out there.
Sometimes bravely, sometimes not too wisely.
Well, that's true.
For most of us in the immediate Houston area, it is fairly difficult to tell that Chantel is anything much out of the ordinary.
So far for the city anyway, it's just a big rainstorm. But Houston says it is prepared for whatever Chantal may bring. Reporter Bill Jeffries is standing by live downtown with more. Where are you, Bill?
Well, I'm not far from the emergency bunker here where they follow all of these kind of storms and emergencies. The rainy, windy weather does seem to have picked up a bit in the downtown area during the past hour or so. As we mentioned, there are those spots turning up on streets where some flooding is occurring, so people need to be careful there. But mostly today, it's basically in Houston, so far at least, a big thunderstorm, and if you go outside, mainly, you need to be prepared for some headaches.
It's just windy enough to wipe out your umbrella, as a lot of people are learning. And traffic is moving slowly with poor visibility. Mayor Kathy Whitmire urges you to drive safely if you must go out today. And emergency officials say they're prepared if flooding occurs.
Right now, we're just gearing up as far as recovery and rescue efforts if that becomes necessary. We do have 8 airboats on standby, Houston Fire Department, plus 2 public works, and various high water vehicles ready to go if we need those.
And believe it or not, most city services are up and running despite the weather.
We're told that, at least at last word, metro buses were running, both airports were open, although you should expect delays and cancellations on a day like this, of course. And Steve and Marlene, believe it or not, at least as of this morning, City of Houston garbage crews were out attempting to make their rounds and pick up the trash. Frankly, the way the storm is going, I have to believe they're going to have some serious trouble finishing their routes.
Susan here, Bill, I think you're probably right. Just how bad is it downtown right now? Are people getting around pretty well?
People are getting around all right. There is traffic moving around. It is quieter downtown. There are a lot of people who obviously didn't come in for work today, that sort of thing. You have some backups on the freeway where around here, wherever you get someone who stalls out or an accident has happened, there are many, many cars that have stopped here or there, and those are causing some traffic problems. But basically in the downtown area here, it's a nuisance. Windy, rainy weather, and again, it does seem to have picked up a bit during the last hour or so, and will hope it doesn't get much worse.
All right, Bill, keep an eye on it for us, will you? And we better let him get inside and get dry.
You have to think the tunnel system will be put to good use during the lunch hour today.
Absolutely.
This big storm is not a hurricane any longer, but it sure is causing its share of headaches for Houston Lighting and Power. The company tells us 115,000 people have no power in the Houston-Galveston area. The light company says its people are doing what they can now to get the lights turned back on for these folks. And Bill just mentioned Metro. Metro is doing what it can to help get people home from work early, if indeed they went to work. An extra bus will be sent to each of the Metro Park and Ride locations at 1 o'clock. Now, that's 2.5 hours earlier than usual. Metro says more buses will be sent later in the day if they become necessary. So Metro is stepping in to fill a need where the need is obvious.
And the buses are running no matter what, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, Dan Metter will be here in a moment to tell us just about how much more rain we can possibly get.
I'm back now. I was just checking the rainfall totals. We're getting reports of over 10 inches of rain near Clear Lake down there. So I think the big story today is not going to be the wind, it's going to be the rain. I'm afraid the rain's going to be with us for the next couple of days. We could be seeing much more rain in the next 2 days. We talk about that next.
I am an executive receptionist and PBX operator. I have a take-charge, professional attitude, and I function well in stressful situations. I am responsible, mature, and I maintain a professional appearance. My name is Pearl Lee Swab.
For more information about job search, contact the TEC Employer Service Office at 530-0900.
Introducing the perfect summer for troubled kids.
Get a second set of big 35mm 4x6-inch show prints free, including a free $1.99 value album.
The Oilers want it all, and this year they're out to get it. Training camp is firing up. And our guy who's been in the huddle will be in San Marcos to bring you the action. Get ready for Giff Nielsen's reports from Oilers camp. Tonight on 11 News at 10.
Tropical Storm Chantal is now inland, but you wouldn't know it by some of the reports we're getting. The latest coordinates, 30.0 north, 95.0 west. That's about 25 miles just to the northeast of Galveston. Winds now reporting at 55 miles per hour. That's what was on the latest report. Although we're seeing gusts beyond that, especially in the Galveston area. It's still moving to the northwest about 12 miles per hour. Now, they have issued flood warnings throughout southeast Texas for Harris, Brazoria, Galveston, and Chambers County. Fort Bend might be added to this list a little bit later on. The rainfall reports have been incredible. We're already past 10 inches at Clear Lake. And on a Galveston radar report, you can see exactly why. The system at the time yesterday was still in the Gulf of Mexico, but continued to track this way. It crossed the land about 8 o'clock this morning. But notice the bright colors between the Houston and Galveston area right in here. This is the very heavy rains. Unfortunately, this area is going nowhere fast, and that's one reason why we're having so much problems. The area continues to swirl around the eye, which is in this area here, and until this area has a chance to move out, we could be seeing much more rain throughout the area. This is the latest rainfall reports into our studios. Clear Lake reported just about 9 inches. She called about noon, saying that she was over 10 inches of rain, and the rain was still falling down there by buckets. Friendswood, 7 inches plus. Galveston today, this is today, 6 inches plus. Missouri City nearly 4 inches of rain. Spring Branch over 6 inches. And as you move toward the north, the rainfall reports drop off considerably. Spring Branch and also the I-45 1960 area, only an inch of rainfall. So you can see this area south of Houston, from Houston southward, is going to be the big problem, the rainfall. Now, in our satellite picture, you can see the swirl of the clouds in southeast Texas is definitely the bullseye. And take a line from the Victoria up to Temple and back to East Texas. Generally east and south this area, there is a flash flood watch, needless to say. Also a tornado watch. We had reports of a tornado near Galveston today. But where the skies are sunny, it's a nice day. San Antonio, sunny skies at 92, 90 degrees coming in from Midland right now. This whole system is projected to continue to move toward the west. The good news is it may be bringing some rain to South Texas and West Texas where they desperately need it. Temperatures throughout the area at noon are generally in the 70s, but the wind Reports still coming in quite gusty, gusting to 36 miles per hour intercontinental, gusting to 37 miles per hour at Hobby, and the pressure at Hobby now 2945. And we had reports the winds gusting to near 70 miles per hour in Galveston. Although the official reports say the winds are only 55, you can see that they're still getting some near hurricane force winds down in the Galveston Island. And of course, they have to contend with all the rain. Now for tomorrow, that little system will continue to push toward the west and toward the northwest. Will probably downgrade it to perhaps a depression by tomorrow. But the big problem again is going to be the rain. It's still tapping into a lot of Gulf moisture. That Gulf moisture is going to be swirling back into the center of the storm, and that does mean more rain for southeast Texas. Our forecast for the remainder of the day, if you hadn't guessed it, 100% probability of some showers, temperatures in the upper 70s. That rain chance is going to remain at 100% all the way through tonight, and perhaps by tomorrow the chances of rainfall will be going all the way down to 60%, but we will continue with the cloudy skies, and perhaps by Friday a break. We'll be seeing back some more summer-type weather, back into the summertime weather. But again, like I said earlier, the big problem is not going to be the wind, it's going to be the rain. Already 10 inches plus at Clear Lake, and it's still raining.
That's what our folks out in the field are telling us.
But we're supposed to be on the dry side of this storm.
Yeah.
Yes, isn't that nice?
Doesn't make any sense at all.
Just hope we don't get on the wet side.
Yeah.
Right, Dan.
Thank you. Still to come on 11 News at noon. In other news this evening, another American hostage faces a death threat in Lebanon.
But no evidence yet that Muslim extremists have carried out the execution of Joseph Scipio. We'll be right back.
If someone you love needs help, call Directions Mental Health Services, 777-7100.
Next! Chick jeans. Come try it out at Target. We've got your size. We guarantee it.
More elderly people are committing suicide than ever before. Is it that they feel they've become a burden on their families and have no more use to society? Or are some children to blame because their parents feel neglected and not wanted? On the next Oprah Winfrey Show, why our elderly are committing suicide at an increasing rate. Are we to blame? We'll talk about it.
Watch The Oprah Winfrey Show today at 4 on Channel 11.
There is other news this noon besides the hurricane from the Mideast. An execution deadline has apparently come and gone in Lebanon.
And so far, there is no word on whether or not Muslim extremists have killed a second American. The terrorists said they would kill Joseph Scipio this morning unless Israel releases a Muslim cleric it kidnapped Friday. This threat follows yesterday's apparent hanging of another American hostage, Marine Lieutenant Colonel William Higgins. The life of British hostage Terry Waite also has been threatened. Relatives of those being held in Lebanon are asking Israel now to release the Muslim cleric Sheikh Obaid.
I would like to make a plea to Israel to please release Sheikh Obaid as quickly as possible. We must try to do everything we possibly can.
Israel is offering to free the sheikh in exchange for Israeli and American hostages being held in Lebanon, but a pro-Iranian political party is rejecting any suggestion of a prisoner swap. We hope you'll stay tuned for storm updates throughout the afternoon, then join Marlene and me for 11 News at 5. We'll have live reports from locations all along the storm's path as Chantal continues to move through, dropping a whole lot of rain. The latest this evening, 11 News at 5.
And Steve, we've been in touch with Jim Green at Harris County Flood Control this afternoon. He tells us that the worst flooding right now is in southeast Houston. We will have a full report on that at 5.
Right now, let's go back to Neil and Dan in the Weather Center. We are not exactly on the totally dry side. Is that what you folks are saying? Obviously not.
Steve, we're not far enough to the west. We're still really in the western edge of the center of the eye, and that can be wet. You know, on further west, it's a little drier. But the main problem now is that flooding, 10 inches, as Dan has already indicated, and it's still raining, and more is going to come this afternoon. Steve? Susan?
Any idea, Neil, on just how much more rain we might get?
Well, as long as it stays around, you know, we could be measured in terms of inches. I'm talking about additional inches to what we've already had. So we've got some very serious flooding problem over a lot of the Harris County area.
There's no way of suggesting then that it will be kept pretty much in the southeast part of the county. Then it could be more county-wide than it is now.
Oh, yeah, and of course the flood warnings go all the way down to Chambers, Galveston, and on down to Brazoria County.
Sounds like a busy afternoon.
Yeah, sounds like a dangerous situation, too, for folks out on the road. Thanks, Neil and Dan. We know you're going to be on the job all afternoon. That's our news at noon. We thank you for joining us.
Marlene and I will see you this afternoon at 5.